The average technician in multifamily gets 11 hours of training per year. 11. Right now, nobody trains less than multifamily, and I mean nobody. So let me just say this for everyone that's watching this. Certifications are not training at all. They're transfers of liability, and they're usually given out too late, not often enough. It's like having a driver's license. Well, yeah, you got one. That doesn't mean you can drive.
We have individuals that we promote with zero training to manage $80 million assets on a daily basis. That happens every single day, day in and out in our industry by just handing them a key, giving them a pat on the back, and just wishing them the best of luck. We wouldn't do that with our own money.
If anybody runs a business and they get a bonus for not spending preventative maintenance, in my opinion, they shouldn't get it. So the thing for the companies is if they're serious, they have to behave like they're serious. Where a lot of people are just used to lip service. Yeah, we value you, but we won't give you tools. We value you, but you can't have training. We value you, but everybody gets mass-produced pizza 10 out of 10 times in the year. Nothing will get rid of people faster than you shutting down.
Mark, welcome to the summit, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet out here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. What are your thoughts on, to my knowledge, the first multifamily maintenance-specific summit ever?
I have to say, I'm really excited that this is finally happening. I think this is an event that many of us, people such as you and me and many others, have wanted to see happen for years. And very often, leadership will say, we really respect our teams. And I know they do in many ways, but there's never really been something exclusively for us. And there's not a corporate presence. The agenda is to learn, to be around peers, exchange ideas, and really prove through behavior that we're supported and appreciated. And there is a lot of knowledge in this conference, and I have a feeling that everyone is going to go back very energized. So I'm just really grateful that it's taken place.
You also been very involved behind the scenes with making it all happen. What are some topics that you think a conference like this should cover?
So for maintenance specifically,
Yeah.
There's a few things. So most companies specifically really benefit from leadership, communication, soft skills, and then of course your in-field proficiencies, technical. So the thing, especially for a conference like this, is we have leaders and we need them to multiply what they want to see in the field. In addition to having technical skills, which is to me basically a given, you should be technically proficient, but how do you manage a team? How do you understand and deliver the goals of the ownership and the investors through the behaviors in the field? And I think most owners or investors hire someone like us and think to themselves, you know, it would be great if you could really put forth a genuine effort in helping me make my business more successful, but doing so skillfully in the field. So it's not just enough to be able to make repairs, but how do you manage everything in our assets to help preserve them and make them more valuable? So how to be a better leader, a better supervisor, how to communicate and coach people for performance, and especially coaching, because it's really the individual and the collective performance together. And I think those are things that most companies overlook because they want liability training, fair housing, sexual harassment, customer service, then they go into technical certifications. So I think we should have a fair share of both.
There's a lot to unpack there. I would like to start with what you just said before. Maintenance techs, you gotta be skilled, you gotta be able to turn the wrench to fix things. Maintenance manager takes a different set of skill. You and I had this conversation, probably several times already during different settings. So what are some differentiators? What are some things that make a technician job versus a manager job so different? And why is it important to train differently and to actually build an entire curriculum for the two positions? Not just something that's like we have KMT, it's for certified apartment maintenance professionals, but it's kind of like for technicians. They have a few modules that are they're calling them leadership, but are they really teaching people to manage? I'm not sure what the answer, if the answer is like a solid yes, but I'll let you speak.
Sure, so we could talk about this for days. So what most companies do is they take a basic or an intermediate program and they reward the most senior technicians. So a technician's been with them for 10, 20 years, and then KMT is not really designed for that. It's helpful, but we have to tailor it to the property, to the individual, to the company as a whole, and then the industry. We have to really ask ourselves, what are we trying to achieve? And when you move from a technician, the highest responsibilities, the primary focus should be your technical proficiencies and your soft skills with your customers, and then your interpersonal communication with your employees. Like, okay, your resume is wonderful. Are you actually easy to work with? If not, are you coachable? You'll hear this saying often that people get hired for their technical abilities, but they get fired for their behavior. And technicians really have to cultivate those skills, and then as they become more senior, most companies have ranks like Tech 1, 2, and 3, pre-engineering, engineering, manufacturing. We have to prepare them before they get put in the position, and that's what happens. So you take the most skillful person you have in the field, and you put them into a role where they have zero experience and they have not yet had any training whatsoever. So if we can start to trickle that training in and help people understand as they progress in their career, their ability to understand and manage people in a business is just as important, and they will do more of that and less of work in the field. And I think that would help. So I would ask myself that question: where do we start the transition to develop our own employees to take on a new role?
Is it the best decision to take the most skilled employee and put them in a manager's position?
So that's a lot. That's a big question. So the answer is yes and no, right? And so you can take someone that is amazing at one role, but they went from high proficiency to low proficiency, and now they're in an environment where they hopefully have had support. So the answer is yes, but the answer can also be no, because you can set someone up for failure if they've not had their skill sets cultivated and trained and developed before they get there. So they're basically getting shocked in this position, and they're supposed to flourish. And what you really did is you set them up for failure with hopes that they could just land and be successful. Most people will navigate one of two ways. They move away from the reprimand and they follow the praise until they figure it out. So what our job should be is getting people as prepared so the assimilation into the new position is as smooth as possible, and it will never be effortless. But it's a huge disservice to say, you've been a great technician, we lost somebody, you're promoted, you're now in charge. And they have no idea what to do. They don't even have access to the software systems. They don't understand the hierarchy, the SOPs. And all you did was set that person up for a lot of difficulty. And they're going to make bad decisions because they've never been trained or given the resources to make good ones.
I'm always making a parallel saying that when you're looking at placing your hard-earned money and you go to a money manager and you ask them to place your money to the best of their abilities, I think a legit question to them is, how much real estate or how much money are you managing? How large is your portfolio? And I think you'll be very impressed if the person says $80 million.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have individuals that we promote with zero training to manage $80 million assets on a daily basis. That happens every single day, day in and day out in our industry, by just handing them a key, giving them a pat on the back, and just wishing them the best of luck. We wouldn't do that with our own money. And also, to me, it's crazy that companies very savvy in investing that made billions and millions of dollars will find this way of doing business acceptable. Do you think that's a lack of knowledge on their end? They're just saying, we're going to hire the third-party manager and we believe, like, we trust their judgment? Or is it literally just they just don't know any better?
So there's a couple things, and I want you to make sure I address training too. So what most people are taught in business is to follow the explicit information. Data doesn't lie, people do, right? Figures don't lie, liars figure, if you've ever heard that phrase. So they're accustomed to that, and it's easy to look, you're either in the red or the black. You're either profiting or you're not. To which degree depends. So they have KPIs. What they overlook is what's called the critical success factors, the behaviors, the processes that are in place that enable you to be successful and deliver those numbers. If you have never worked in the field as a service department and you've only run a business from a P&L, you don't understand the behaviors behind how that helps people in their home become much more comfortable with paying a little bit more, much more comfortable with ancillary incomes and services, Whereas if you focus on the people, they develop relationships, you have timely responses, you have professional engagements, everybody feels like they're part of a team, they're engaged. And I will say this, the companies that get it, like that get the magic part of this, the art of it, not just the science, is they can promote people, and the pipeline is amazing. And there are companies in this industry with a waiting list to work for, and they make it work. But when it comes to training, and I am almost finished with a huge study, it's the first one that's ever been done in the industry. Right now, nobody trains less than multifamily, and I mean nobody. So let me just say this for everyone that's watching this. Certifications are not training at all. They're transfers of liability, and they're usually given out too late, not often enough. It's like having a driver's license. Well, yeah, you got one. That doesn't mean you can drive, but you can be held responsible for doing so, and that's really what they're for. So on average, in multifamily, if you remove the certifications like EPA, HVAC if you like, the CPO, the average technician in multifamily gets 11 hours of training per year. 11. The half-life of your technical skills is about 2 years. So if you're not constantly pouring into the technicians in the field at a minimum of 40 to 50 hours a year, they're slowly declining in their physical skill sets, like technical troubleshooting. So I think we need to address this overall as a whole and at least get to where people are gaining skills and not fighting the loss of them. And I think we'd be better off for that.
With the advent of AI, technology in general, and robotics too, I think that even the 40 to 50 hour a year norm, it's about to become obsolete. I'm thinking right now that most degrees that you study in a 4-year college, they will become, maybe not today, but probably 5 years from now for sure, by the time you finish and you graduate, the way we teach today, right? If the education system doesn't change, 5 years from now, you're going to start to get a degree. By the time you finish and you get your degree, 4 years later, that job, the way you've been taught to do it, the knowledge is gonna become obsolete.
Yeah, I agree. And so let me just say this for people that can get this reference. It's like in construction when you build the code. Code is the lowest form that will pass. It's not a job well done. It's not overbuilt. It's a D-, or you can just say barely over the line, whatever that standard is. So do we really want to do that with our technicians? And if you look at the top performing companies, don't take my word, go look at them, research them. Just go to the top quartile and say, how many hours do you put into your technicians a year? How many do you put into your managers? And most of the really exceptional companies that have been consistently in the top over a long period of time put in 200 hours per person, minimum. Now, so let's say half of that is on-the-job training. Okay, well then 100 hours is formal training. And if you want to break that up into, software, technology, whatever that is, but the new workforce coming in, they don't have the same reference for tools and hardware and making repairs such as Generation X and up. Most of those vocational trades were removed from the school systems. So we have to have a greater amount of training and in more basic things such as hardware, tools, how to actually use them, why you don't hang light fixtures with drywall screws. What do we do with AI? How can it help? And most of the people that are accustomed to AI don't mind, but they can tell the difference. It dehumanizes your business, but it does help your business. And we are in a human being business. So the less we can dehumanize our business, and if it is automated, it has to actually be automated with a personal touch. So for example, if you submit a service request and it wasn't completed, but you just got a "how was our visit to your home" message that was automated, well then you missed it, right? You missed the mark. So we have to be more thoughtful about that. And you can make meaningful exchanges, but you'll never replace the human interaction. But the more you can humanize it, the better for service.
Very interesting thought. I think every job in maintenance, the way we know it today to be performed, is going to be challenged. And every job in general today, every job that exists in a society, by technology, I'll say probably by AI in particular, not in a way that necessarily they will completely disappear, but they will be done, they will be performed differently. And the way I'm thinking is some of them will completely disappear. I just saw an example 3 weeks ago. I read an article that says a company from Israel built a robot that hangs out drywall at 1,500 square feet per hour, right? Maybe that's not.
Wow, okay.
And there's a company in New York actually that's using it right now to hang drywall. So maybe that's not a perfect technology today, but imagine having deploying 1,000 robots like that, collecting information, data points that tells you like what they're doing wrong, and by collectively improving them performance, which could happen like literally on the spot with the communication and AI. AI could collect all the data and actually tell them how to improve immediately, right? Maybe with some human help too, as well. But it's a real possibility, and I think that if that company has the possibility to deploy 1,000 robots, probably a year from now or 2 years from now, that robot will be unreplaceable, and he's gonna replace an entire trade. The drywall hangers, they just won't exist eventually, because I can't see how that happened. Now, however, another type of job will be created, and it's gonna be the job of people that program the robots, that manage the robots, they maintain and repair the robots. What do you say?
So I think there'll be a big shift. The simple things for automation would be like, say, spider mowers. You drop off a truck, they deploy, they cut the grass. You know, there's things like that we can do. Sheetrock, drywall, mechanical things. Automotive industries are probably the pinnacle of that type of automation. So in that aspect, it's very helpful. In the human interaction, maybe not so much. So we'll have to figure that out. But the thing is if you look at service maintenance as a behavior or like a task on an inanimate object, the service piece is the human experience, right? So how do we employ technology or deploy it or implement it without taking away from the human experience? So, and that's the difference between a maintenance technician and a service technician. I say this all the time. Maintenance is a task. You don't have to deal with anybody. Fix what you need to be that needs to be fixed and leave. But if you have service, then you have to be proficient with human beings and that communication. So I think it can do a lot, where the automation and AI can help with like data points for predictive maintenance, not preventative maintenance. So preventative maintenance typically, and let me say this, and I'm gonna throw this out there. If anybody runs a business and they get a bonus for not spending preventative maintenance, in my opinion, they shouldn't get it. You should achieve 95% of your training, and 95% of your preventive maintenance should be implemented in order for you to be eligible. Otherwise, you'll choose declining the asset over improving it to get the bonus. I think we have to really understand those types of things. So you'll have worksite prep, right, and staging. So if you have asphalt and you could set a machine and it can just basically be programmed, you know, to resurface a parking lot or seal coat it or something like that. But where it's going to shift for us is humans have to touch technology in order to repair it. So it'll go from repairing, programming, maintenance, all of those things. There'll be protocols and stages. But in the predictive maintenance is what I was getting at. I got off a little bit. We'll be replacing things based on data before they actually go bad. So you have to figure out what level of response do you want. Reactive, where we don't fix it unless it's broken. Preventative, which is we'll do something along the line of its life to prolong it. Or predictive, which is where we have water heaters, they're 12 years old, they're designed to be about 12 to 15 years life expectancy. The data says we should start to replace all of these now. So we'll put a program out over the next 12 months. So I think that's where the technicians will really benefit from it, and then we can schedule their work and put average work times on task for things to get completed. Maintenance technicians are like the silent unsung heroes that make things work, where people don't even realize. They're just so accustomed to having hot water or air conditioning. And if you have condensing units or air handlers and they're supposed to last 15 years, at the 12-year mark, you'll now have the data and start to replace things based on that data in some form of a schedule or a timeline of completion for the projects. So I think that's where we could really benefit from AI.
I venture to say that this should be like a very rare situation in today's multifamily environment where a company actually does that. Are there any companies, and it doesn't matter if you can name names, but are there any companies that you know of that have this predictive approach?
There's a couple that come to mind, and I don't mention their names because they get swarmed with phone calls.
That's totally fine, but I'm just curious if you see, because I don't have any
so there's a
knowledge of
company
that.
in Virginia, and I talked to she's wonderful, the VP, and basically is whenever it comes to anything that requires a technician to go in the home, they'll usually do one of several things. They'll give them some like a lunch at a local restaurant, maybe tickets to a movie, and something, whether it's in the form of a gift, so the person is encouraged not to be there, and then when they come home, the water heater is replaced. So for the $20, $30, $40, you know what, go out on us, go watch a movie, take dinner. You have 2 days, 3 days to choose from. When you're gone, we'll be there. And when you come home, we'll make sure everything is squared away and clean, and your water temperature is 120 or 125 degrees. So there are a few companies that do that. They're private companies. They tend to be a little smaller. It's a little bit more of a challenge for large companies to do that, but there are companies that do it. And I'm always thoroughly impressed whenever I see that take place.
Jumping to training right now, I have a question that came out of what you were saying earlier. Companies, they have a long line of people actually waiting, wanted to come and join them, work for them. How do we deploy 100 hours of training when I have reliable data that says third-party management companies, large groups, right? I'm talking about top 10. Turnover rates for service manager at the site level, currently, it's 90%. For that particular position, today, on a good note, I have great information, great insight of a particular company that is looking at 90% turnover rates for service managers.
So, and that's why I'm so glad we're having this conference, right? Because basically, what you encourage as a manager or a management is what you multiply in the field. And what you reinforce is what you standardize. And it takes about 2 years, usually, to change a company. It will go through rejection, ridicule, or mockery, if you like, where people just bash it and wait for it to go away. And then it becomes acceptance, generally speaking. So the thing for the companies is if they're serious, they have to behave like they're serious. Where a lot of people are just used to lip service. Yeah, we value you, but we won't give you tools. We value you, but you can't have training. We value you, but everybody gets mass-produced pizza 10 out of 10 times in the year. And while these things seem so simple, we have to start with understanding that they're preserving the life of your asset, number one. What happens most often is it's seen as a liability. And I get that because it's an expense that comes out of operating expenses. It's not bundled into the loan or the property or construction. But if the companies are serious, this is going to be a wake-up call, because right now, from the survey I'm doing, 34% of companies are fully staffed, 34. So the turnover rate that's highest is the technician and then of course the supervisor, as you well know. And if you can just focus on this, half of hourly employees leave within the first 120 days. So I would make that the golden line of focus, and the people have to get their training. So here's the deal. If you're a manager and you're actually serious about making a difference, you have to do these things. And people that train win. I know you've heard me say this before. People that don't train,
you could say it
don't.
again and again.
Okay, and so here's the deal. You can find any excuse you want in the world for, I need them, I can't do without them, I don't want them to go. But I have to tell you, even now, after I've been in business for 21 years now, if I have a certification class, how many of you had, less than 48 hours notice that you had to be here? About a third of the room, a quarter to a third raised their hand. To this day, it hasn't changed yet too much. But here's the deal, and you have to understand this in business. If you are a person that really likes data, I have a challenge for you. I challenge you to go look at all of the most highly rated companies in your industry, specifically in your market, whether they've won any kind of award for being the best company of some sort, especially to their employees. And I want you to look at their training. That's it. Just see what they do and start making a list of all of the things that are common across all of the top performing companies. And you'll see that it's culture, treatment, coaching, training is at the top of the list every single time. So we have to make sure that we're training people, because I'm going to tell you right now, anyone that's watching this, if you don't train your people, they won't last. They're not going to stay. You can refute that anyway, but the data is there and it's been there for years. Companies that treat their employees keep them longer, and part of that treatment is that the way they coach and train and provide training for them. So I want you to look at the top quartile and see what they do.
Mark, in closing of our conversation,
Sure.
wanted to ask you, besides training, if you were to be in an executive position at a management company today, and you will be empowered 100% to implement one thing and one thing only for maintenance today to make the most difference for your maintenance teams, whether that's employee retention, better performance, better resident retention, which decision would that be?
And I only have to pick one, right? Okay.
You could pick more than one if you want, but just say, like, if it's two or three, just say this would be number one, number two,
I would say
number three.
training no matter what. Minimum of 100 hours. Minimum. Everybody goes no matter what. Every person that works for the company gets all of the hand tools they need the day they walk in the door. And if they're there for the 4th month, they're theirs to keep forever. The next thing I would do is make sure everyone has training on how to develop a team. A lot of people show up to work and they don't work like a team. And here's how it works. If you talk to people it's team, teammate, me. And when you put the individual above those, you don't have a team. You have a group of individuals going to the same place. And you'll hear people, I want to create a culture. You don't just create a culture. You instill a set of behaviors that are enforced. And then that culture will grow from that. And then you navigate it and nudge it in the right direction and make sure that people are allowed to be empowered in the field. So I would say training, tools, and empowering and trusting people, because nothing will get rid of people faster than you shutting down every idea and taking away all of the things all of the decisions they're allowed to make. And when you disempower people, they create distance and then they disappear. And so I would start with those 3 things across the board.
Mark, super appreciative.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. All right.